How do you, when you look at that, we live in one of the hotbeds of kind of innovation.
Yeah.
And really what you're talking about is let's kickstart a whole new way of thinking about what we spend our time on, how we work, how we apply all the innovative spirit that's in this area.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about a conference? Are you thinking about, you know, how do you want to
That's a good
participate
question.
in
Well,
that?
I think some of it we're trying to tackle in different areas. One idea that Saul Griffith has been kicking around is something kind of like a citizens' hearings on climate science. We've really kind of got to get down so that everybody agrees on what the real numbers are versus what's the politically modulated numbers.
Right.
You talk to the IPCC guys and they say, well, we had to compromise on what we really said because of all the political considerations. You talk to them privately. So then could we really get expert testimony? What would the hearings be like if again, we're seeing this jumping back to the financial stuff, the SEC kind of blessing, Madoff and blessing so many things that, we're actually, in retrospect, rotten.
You give
me
me
the same thing happening in some of these other areas of science and technology. Our education system where we're blessing stuff that's just broken.
Well, it's interesting. One of the contenders for Word of the Year this year was hypermiling.
Yeah.
And this idea that part of persuasive technology is when you expose kind of how your driving exerts an influence on gas mileage, you tend to self-correct and optimize for optimal gas mileage. And earlier we were talking about the social nervous system, but feeding real data back to people and seeing the impact of what they can do seems in a possible way to...
Actually there's another related, I just saw something, this is on via Scientific American on Twitter. They did a study on dieting, and it's the same kind of thing. If people they had two control groups, or two groups, and one of them kept a food diary. And the one that kept a food diary lost twice as much weight as the one that didn't. So they had to be sharing what they were eating with someone else. And that made them, that feedback loop created different behavior.
There's a
little bit
group,
like hypermiling.
There's a group that Kevin Kelly has called the Quantified Self.
Yeah, exactly.
And Gary Wolf also, who's going to be at ETech, talking about that, I think.
A really fascinating area. And of course, right now you see a lot of this quantification is just happening by people taking notes, but there's increasingly there's startups that are doing monitoring. You may have seen Fitbit that was at TC50, but there are definitely others. We're going to start, having that quantified self and the socially quantified self as well. It's not just something private.
Exactly. Seems like that could be a good plug into stuff that matters, allowing society to see kind of more realistically, because it seems like government has subsidized a lot of really negative activities without exposing the negativity.
And I think part of it is people want to do the right thing.
Right.
And often it's first of all, it's creating new social norms. I've often loved the conclusion of Kurt Vonnegut's Mother Night. Is you are what you pretend to be, so you better watch what you pretend.
Right.
And he used it in a negative sense, where this guy's actually, was he really a good guy or a bad guy? But I've often thought it's also a wonderful way for us to improve our character. It's just, assert good that we want to be good. Yeah. And then we have to live up to it. Right.
That's true. There's this very simple technique of smiling, literally just smiling, forcing yourself to smile creates a better mood. It's like observe the symptom and it will revert back to the...
And so I think it's where in some of this sort of stuff that matters stuff, it's like simply raising awareness is the first step. But secondly, building tools. I do think we're in a unique position in so many issues where the technology that we have been using on the consumer internet can now actually help solve some of these other problems. Again, whether it's something like smart grids is a great example, but also, people have been talking again about automated driving. And I just saw I forget what blog it was, but it was in the New York Times. But this idea of if you could literally have, rather than having trains, you could have cars that are just in the train lane, where they're basically coordinated electronically, and they're driving together bumper to bumper, under single computer control. Now again, maybe you could say, well, that could fail catastrophically, but an interesting idea about what you could do differently if you thought about the potential that IT brings to an old problem.
Right.